I have a confession to make. I don't really like drawing. I'm good at it because I've done it a lot, but it's really not my favorite thing. In fact, sometimes I see it as just an obstacle on the way to painting. So I've developed different ways to sort of skip that step. They're a little tricky, they're really easy, and then I can get right into the color. So today I'm going to show you one of those, and you can just go ahead and copy me, and then we're going to do a painting. So let's get started. I'm going to use the smooth side for this picture because it appeals to me today. And here's what I'm going to do. I want to place my picture kind of in the center here, because when I finish this watercolor, I can make it into prints, and then you'll be able to buy them on my website. So I'm just centering it here like this. And now I'm taking it to just about the only room in the house where I can actually get close to a window, which is my laundry room. We've had all kinds of degrees of light today because we've had all kinds of weather. Right now it's raining. An hour ago it was hailing, it was just pounding down, and in between we had sunshine. But it doesn't matter because as long as there's light coming from outside, you can use this technique. And how it works is just the simplest old-fashioned technique that you probably learned as a kid, which is put your art up against a window, then you can see it through the paper. Oops, wrong way, this way. I can clearly see my image through the paper. So just using a bit of masking tape, I'm going to attach it to the window at a height that's comfortable for me. If it's too high, I'm going to get tired arms. If it's too low, it runs into this thing in the screen. And there's a spider web or something on the window there, but that's not going to interfere. So I'm just going to put it as low as I can so that it's easier for me to work with. And now I'm just going to draw around it. Watercolor paper is nice and tight against this. You can actually see through 140-pound water paper. If the sun was out, which it is obviously not because it's currently raining, then it would be show through much brighter. I have been a watercolor artist for more than 35 years, and I've learned a lot over the years. So I'm going to do this, and then we can go paint. All right, so here's my drawing, and I can now detach it from the main one. It's a good thing these were nice and dark. So a couple of tips. Number one, try and make sure that the light outside coming in from the back is brighter than the room you're in. So I forgot to turn off my overhead light, and I had a lamp on there, and I went, why can't I see this well enough? And I went, oh yeah. And at the same time, it got darker and darker outside, and it's pouring and everything else. Okay, number two is I chose the wrong pen. It turns out it was running out of ink. And that's why you see darker here, because partway through I went, I can't even see what I'm doing here. So what I did was grab a different pen, which happens to be a little bit darker. And that's really not a problem at all, because I can just go through here and put a few different leaves and petals and marks in the darker pen, and I think it will actually add to it. And the fact that I'm going over a line, it just gives it a little bit more character, I think. So don't worry if things don't go right the first time. Stuff happens. Okay, I am keeping this next to me just to, because sometimes I couldn't quite see what was going on in a picture. Now I can just kind of fill those little spots in. But by and large, everything turned out just exactly as I wanted it to. So I've got my water. Toss that in there. Open up my paints and grab my favorite brush. Now there's a couple of different ways you can paint this kind of picture. In fact, as many as you can think of. But what I think I want to do with this is just keep it really super loose. That means I don't have to go around every little shape. I don't have to, fuss with it a lot. So what I'm going to do first is just put water on my lights. Now, if you watched my previous video, you might remember that I was a little disappointed with the Micron pen, which I just used to touch this up, because if it's not completely dry, it can run on you. And just, you know, I don't want that to happen. Let's just say that. So my water actually isn't going to the edge here. One of the reasons that people hesitate to take up watercolor is because it has a reputation for being difficult. I'm going to say it's not difficult. You just need to learn how. Like anything, once you know how, it's not difficult. But there are certain things that you need to learn. And I'm going to show you a couple of them right now. One of them is wet and wet, and the second one is wet on dry. They're kind of self-explanatory, but have a watch. For wet and wet, that's what I did here. I put down water first, and then I put the color in and let the color just move. Now I'm not going to play with that very much because, like I said, I don't want things to be smearing on me. I've picked up some green from over here. Put a little bit more of this color in here. Put a little bit more of this hooker's green in here. It's a little bit brighter than I want, so I'm just going to pick some of this up and throw it on top there. Add a little bit more water so I don't run out. And then I'm just going to put kind of random color on leaves. It's hard to tell what's leaves and what's flowers here, so when I did the drawing, the leaves mostly had a line through them. But rather than try and make them precise, I'm just going to keep them pretty loose, because my experience with watercolor, which is long, as I mentioned earlier, I've been working in watercolor for, well, since my youngest daughter started kindergarten. And now she has a 10-year-old. So you can take a guess at that. So just a few of these leaves, and then I'm going to change color to something a little more yellow-green and do some more of them. If I wanted to go even more loose, I could just make everything wet and just dab in color, and then go back and make them a little bit more, what's the word? Basically a little more different from each other. This weather has been something else. We've been hailed on a few times. We've had rain so hard it was like an inch in an hour. And fortunately, where I live, the ground is flat. Now I want to have kind of an olivey green, so I'm going to get into my Kuretake paints to move some stuff. I always have to move stuff to make something happen. Okay, get over there and don't fall off the edge. Here is a nice olive green. These ones are funny. They're almost gouache, and they kind of need a lot of water to wake up, and then you get pretty strong color. But I don't want strong color. I want it to be a lot softer. And I noticed that this paper, which I haven't even used before because it's new, is kind of resisting the paint. It's like almost like it has a coating on it. And maybe it's because I'm using the wrong side, but that's okay. I think the other side was meant to be the front. However, I'm using what I'm using, and I'm okay with that. It looks a bit strange now with all these obviously different colors of leaves, but you're not done till you're done, so we're not going to fret, are we? So here I am under all these bright lights, and my furnace comes on. Now I want to make my flowers. I think this is a clematis or a clematis, depending how you pronounce it. But I'm going to make them a nice bright color, or sort of an intense color. And of course they're not all going to be the same. So I'm using color that I already have in my palette, which is why I leave it there. because why not use what you already have? You don't have to clean it up after every time you use the color. Let's go with permanent rose. Yeah, that's a little bit pinker. Not that clematis used are all the same color on the vine. They're not. I mean, they tend to be all the same. I'm not making sense, am I? The thing about talking and painting is it's kind of like trying to juggle and ride a bike at the same time. Right, let's get this color again on this big one. So one of the reasons I decided to use the smooth side of this paper is because I want to be able to make it into a print, and what I'm finding is my scanner is picking up the texture of the paper, and it's so difficult. Oh, that's a pretty purple color. I don't want that. I want quinacridone rose, permanent rose, and then we'll put a little purple in it. And what I'm finding too, and you probably, I mean, I think everybody deals with stuff like this. You want to do something like, okay, I want to learn to watercolor paint. And then you find you can't seem to fit it into your days. Like I have a painting, acrylic painting that I've been working on since January. Well, it happened that I went away in January for almost 3 weeks. Came home. When I go away, there's nobody doing the work here. It's just me. And then I have to catch up or prepare ahead of time, which is a pretty big job sometimes to do 3 extra weeks work. When you go back over them, then you can get some more variation in color. As you can see, let's put a little purple in this one. It's pretty purple anyway. But you can see how quick this is. I mean, I'm just basically mucking around with paint, which is one of the most fun things. Let's do this little guy. There's more water in my brush now, so of course it means the paint is coming out lighter, which is great because I can then go back in and make accents in darker colors. Now, as I mentioned when I started, I could do this precisely. However, if you've watched some of my other videos with ink and wash, one of my goals is to paint looser because I really like the look of it. Okay, that isn't a color I'm loving. Well, I like that one. I like that it's a little darker. Don't want that much white showing. And I'm not going to put a background behind all these leaves either, so we have to make them work together to sort of fill the spaces. Now for the light post, I think it was originally white, but that doesn't really work for me for my purposes. So I want to make it kind of bluish, kind of like that, but let's try this cerulean blue and put a little bit of ultramarine deep in there. Yep, and then put a whole bunch of water in it because I want it to just be barely any color. See? Now what I could do as well is go, okay, I'm making a light source here and putting the shadow only on one side. That's one kind of option. These ones, I'm just keeping it really simple. So let's pretend the light's coming from this side. That means I can make this side darker. Just like that. I want the dark on the left-hand side, okay? Now for this post, I don't want it too wet. I'm just going to go carefully around these flowers, like this. Taking the water right up to the edge And then I'm going to go down the side. I'm going to get some wild spreading of the paint. Well, if I want to pick it up, I just take moisture out of my brush and give it a little vacuuming along the sides here. That makes it look like a white post, basically coloring the left-hand side. And to make that a soft line, take the water out of my brush, just touch that corner. So here's the takeaway. As far as drawing, explore different ways to get your drawing onto your watercolor paper. If you really don't want to draw, well, don't. Heck, you do what makes you happy. If you want to learn to draw, that's a different thing. Then by all means, just keep drawing and keep it drawing till you're satisfied, and let yourself off the hook if you don't love it, because we all do drawings that aren't fabulous. I sure do. One more thing before I go. I'm working on my course, which is Ink and Wash. It's a short course to get started in ink and wash. I think you're going to love it. I'm having so much fun creating it. So watch for it. Go to my website at wendydewarhughes.com and get your name on the waiting list. Just click on courses. You can read a little bit about it and get your name on the waiting list. And then you'll be the first to know when it's ready. And I'll see you next time.